Why, hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or late night whenever you are watching this podcast on YouTube or listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music Podcasts. What is up, guys? It is James, aka Jimmypancakes20, here to do a new episode of the Jimmypancakes20 show. And boys, this is going to be a good one. This is one that everyone's been waiting for. We are finally going to be wrapping up our Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2008 history videos / podcasts, where this one is part 3, aka the final part. We're going to talk about the 3 shows, which was Chucky's Insolatorium, Slaughter Road 3, and Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure 2008. And I want to thank everyone for understanding that I do this on the side. I do have a full-time job, and due to scheduling conflicts, I could not post this on Saturday, December 1st, 2023. So it is going up today on Sunday, December 2nd, 2023. So pretty much anyone that followed me on my social media sites knew that this was coming. But for anyone that is brand new that's listening to this on the Apple Podcast or Amazon Music Podcast, or if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, please, I recommend follow me on my social media sites, which is Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, because that's where you're going to get the latest updates of when videos / podcasts are coming out. Also, today, I have a very special guest that's also in this podcast, because originally when part 3 was going to come out of the history video / podcast for Halloween Horror Nights 2008 part 3 episode 9, my special guest was not going to be joining me, but she is here live with me recording this episode that you are listening. And I was happy to get her in because she's been in a lot of my podcasts, and she's also going to be doing the podcast with me about our final night of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood, and also our overall review. If you don't know who I'm talking about, at this point, I should be calling her my co-host. So, ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, my special guest, my mom, Marcia. So, Mom, say hello.
Hello, everybody.
So yes, she is back here with me doing this part 3, aka the final part, episode 9, and then a little update for you guys before we get into the podcast. Sometime this week, my co-host Marcia and I will be doing episode 10, which would be our final night Halloween Horror Nights 2023 review, as well as our overall impressions, and it's going to be a long podcast. So it's either going to be one long podcast that we record, or it's going to be different sections that we film that's going to be edited together. So that's going to be coming out sometime this week. So as I said, I recommend following me on my social media sites where you can know when that podcast / video is coming out. So that's pretty much everything business-wise. So, Mom, are you ready to talk about the 3 shows from Halloween Horror Nights 2008?
Yes, I am.
I am ready. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 9 of the Jimmypancakes20 show, part 3, aka the final part of our Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2008 history video / podcast talking about the 3 shows. So, Mom, a lot of people know that your first year going to Halloween Horror Nights was in 2009, but technically your first year going was on closing night of Halloween Horror Nights.
2008.
2008, if you remember, but our time was short-cut because one of my friends, Brian's mother, was picking us up early, so you never got to see most of the stuff, but we did manage to
see all the shows.
So you do remember the shows, but you don't remember some of the mazes.
No.
Or some of the scare zones.
No.
So,
but I did see all 3 of the shows that night.
That night, yes. But you remember more of 2009 because that was the first year that you bought the 10-night pass.
That is correct.
So, yes. I did take her to all 3 shows because my goal for closing night was to take her to all the houses. I think we did pretty much everything, but, the shows really stood out to you. That's what I remember you saying to me, was the show stuck out to you, and you enjoyed every single show.
I did.
Mm-hmm. So.
I did.
So we're going to go from every show. So we're going to start with the one that has the least amount of details because the 2 other shows, there are a lot of notes that I wrote down.
Oh, yes, he did.
Oh, yes. So, the first one we're going to talk about is Chucky's Insult Emporium. Before we get into it, let me read you what the detail was. Chucky's Insult Emporium was in the French Street, was on French Street's, oh my God, I don't even know the word. It was the balcony, the French Street balcony. That's what it was. So if you guys have gone to Universal during the day, where the maze is that's now called Persian Courtyard, but there's like a little section inside where you could sit down, and there's a balcony, and that's where they had the Chucky's Insult Emporium. So if you were on now, which is now Pet's Place, there was a little opening gap like next to the water fountain. That was like where the Chucky show was. And basically, here's the description that they have for that show this year. You think you heard it all. Stop by Chucky's Insult Emporium, where everyone's favorite serial killer is taking insult comedy to a new low. Get ready to die of laughter. So, pretty much, nothing really to it. Basically, Chucky was making fun of people that were watching the show, and they would do the show every 30 minutes, I think, from what I can remember.
I think so, too, yeah.
Yeah. But when you first saw it, what did you think?
He was really insulting people, I can tell you. Like, but it was good. I mean, it was good, but some of the people were getting mad, I could tell, because he was doing really bad insults on them.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
James, what do you think?
I really did enjoy this show because, as I said, I got to see it more often than you did.
Right.
But it was very, very well done. I really did enjoy it. I was surprised how much that I enjoyed the show.
Right.
Yeah. So. Basically, if you guys want to find Chucky's Insult Emporium, I will put a link to one of the best Chucky's Insult Emporium that I found on YouTube, but there's a ton on YouTube that you could just type in Chucky's Insult Emporium and find it.
Right.
But yeah, really, it was a very simple show. It was something, and a lot of people didn't know about that show at the beginning when the event first started, and I was one of them where I didn't know exactly where the show was. I mean, I could hear it, and then until I found like the space, and then I knew where it was. Because they really weren't advertising it. It was just whoever was there.
Walking by the French Street. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they would get a crowd that was waiting for the next show. You know, once people eventually found where it was, then they would have people line up for the next show. But on slower nights, they would try to get people to come in. But on busy nights, there was a line that you had to wait in to see the show.
Right.
Yeah. It was one of those shows when people found out about it. Yeah.
But it's funny and it's really good, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, something happened to that show, which we'll talk to in future episodes because it ties into a theme for the Terror Tram that is for one of the years that is coming up.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about, Mom. But
I know, definitely know what you're talking about.
But we're not going to spoil it right now. We're going to wait. We're going to let the people wait until we get to that year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So yes, that was Chucky's Insult Emporium. So, moving on to the next show, which was Slaughter World 3. This was in the Waterworld Arena. Your reaction first, because, you know, I remember having the conversation with you about this show before we went on closing night.
Right.
And I said, this is the show that you have to see, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it.
He did not tell me anything about it. He did not tell me.
Yeah. But I remember after you was watching that show, after the show was over, you're like, what the heck did I watch?
That's exactly what I said.
Oh man, that was the greatest face I have ever seen.
Like, what the heck is this show?
Right.
Like, do the description, then we'll talk about it, Jay.
Yeah. Okay, so Slaughter World. As I did mention, this was in the Waterworld Theater Arena. It's basically described as a stunt show, but more gory, more violence, more sex stuff. It's pretty much they turned Waterworld into a sex show.
Basically, they did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, basically the story continued from the Slaughter World show. So, going back, so they only did it for 3 years. Okay? So they had the original show, which was in 2006, which was just Waterworld, but with sexual things. Then they did a whole new story for 2007 for Slaughter World 2. So then this one kind of ties in with 2002 a little bit, but was its own story. Kind of. So, yeah. So basically the plot of the show was that the story is Helen has broken into the main bad girls camp and stole the script. And the joke was that that now they have to just show their way, where it's a clean, friendly show with no sex and no violence. Mm-hmm. Of course, that didn't turn out what it was, but let's just go by that. So, the overall theming for the show, what did you think?
I liked it. Yeah, it was gory and stuff, but we'll get into that.
But I'm saying like the joke where Helen broke into the bad girls' camp, took the trip, and then it was going to be their version where it was no sex, no violence, a clean, friendly show.
I would have liked that version better, but I know this is Halloween Horror Nights, so they have to do a gory.
Yes.
So
it's basically a reference, like if you wanted to see a kid-friendly show, see the Waterworld show, but if you wanted to see a gory version, see Slaughterworld. That's pretty much what the joke was.
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay. Oh, sorry. That made me laugh. Mm-hmm. So then the show was not like that, as we did mention.
Nope.
Then they did a huge battle with the bad people attacking the same that they do during the show, where basically the seaplane comes, does the attack, the wall gets blown up, Helen goes to the tower and stuff. But they did change one scene, which I thought was cool, but I was surprised that they did it. They didn't have the person on the skis, where during the regular show they have the jet skier and then the person on the skis come out. No, they just had a jet skier, but he was on fire. Do you remember that? And you turned to me when we were at that scene, and you're like, it's like, is this that kind of show? And I didn't say anything until the show was ended. You were asking me a whole bunch of questions during the show, and I think there was one scene where all the men in the audience went wild, and we'll get to that scene in a moment.
I know what scene that was. Yeah.
But you're like, is that what it really is?
And it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh man. All right. So then basically, so then during the show, they used a lot of foul language, saying like fuck, no shit, and other words. Mm-hmm. So throughout the show, you heard that a lot.
Yeah. You did. You basically did.
They also did a lot of sexual references too. Mm-hmm. So, and then this one, I was like, did they really say that? I had to like, when I was doing these notes, I had to rewatch the scenes because I had to make sure I was saying they were saying this correctly. So there's one scene where during the show, basically the boat is attacking, and then they shoot at the mariner with the gun, and he's spraying the boat with water, and he says, Helen, get down. Or no, he says, stay down.
Right.
But the joke was that they were having a sexual reference when the mariner said, go down. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then he says, oh, stay down. I thought that was funny.
Oh, that was really funny. So, yeah.
Yeah. Then they do the shooting of the mariner. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there's blood, pretending like he lost blood.
Right.
Then something different before they called the person in. Or the bad girl.
Bad girl in. Yeah.
They had someone on stage pretending to run around, and they were trying to shoot him, and then eventually they shot his head off.
Pretend to shoot his head off.
Yes. You remember that scene?
I definitely remember that scene. Mm-hmm.
And then of course they do the whole thing like the deacon was coming in where the boat came in, and the bad girl's name was called Mistress Diva.
Was a weird name, but yeah, that was her name.
That was her name.
Yeah.
So at this point, what did you think so far?
Like, what is this show? It was very entertaining. And it wasn't like the regular Waterworld. Yes. I can tell you that.
It was not.
But it was interesting.
Yes. Yes.
But it was really good.
It was. I was surprised at how good I enjoyed it. But we're only like 5 minutes into the show.
I know.
And this was about like a 20-minute show.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So then they make a joke about her ass.
The bad girl's ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
They said, "How does my ass look?"
She asked that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I can tell you, it's not a show for kids.
No, it's not. So then the guy that rappels down is basically booing her.
Right.
So then they do the normal thing where he gets knocked out, and they pretend like his head got cut up.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets up. So he wouldn't do that during the regular show, but
no.
But for his show, he did.
He did, yeah.
And then she asked, "Anything you have to say is regarding the show?" And he says no. So then she says, "Well, we're gonna have to cut your part."
I know what that means. I know exactly what reference that to. But I can't say it in the podcast.
I have to say it.
His manly part.
Yes. His manly part, yes. Yes. So then the big guy pretends to come up with a chainsaw and then pretends to chainsaw his manly parts off. And then he falls into the tank.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of blood for that scene. There was a lot.
I remember. It's like there was.
So then this is the part I think where the guys went crazy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mistress Diva has an assistant named Barbie, and basically she has the main bad girl's assistant Barbie ripped Helen's shirt off looking for the script. So there was half naked people. Well, they were not naked fully, but And I remember like the crowd went wild for that.
The guys especially.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
and I remember specifically when they did that part, you turned to me and said, "James, how many times have you seen this show?" I said 10 times. She's like, and what was so funny is I knew a lot of the people that did the show. So it was so funny when I would see them during the day. They like, "You're coming back to Slaughter World?" I'm like, "Yeah." So they knew who I was. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, before we continue, Mom, that's about like 10 minutes in. So, what did you think about that so far?
Interesting and good. I knew it was going to be something like that. because it's Slaughter World, it's Halloween Horror Nights. So I knew there was going to be a lot of blood. But so far, so good.
But you were not expecting the shirt to come off.
No, not Helen's shirt, no. No.
And what was your reaction to that?
James saw my reaction and was like, what? I was like bug-eyed, like, really?
Yes.
My eyes almost popped out of my head.
You were like, it's like that kind of show. I'm like, yes, Mom, it's that
kind of show.
Uh-huh. So then, of course, Helen's not going to tell Mistress Diva where the script is. Mm-hmm. So, of course, they move on to one of Helen's friends. Oh, man. So they bring one of Helen's friends up and ask how he feels about sex and violence, and they are turning him on. But then she asks, if you can tell me where the strip is, then we can go talk about it privately. So they were kind of trying to seduce him, but he says, I don't know where the script is, so too bad. They both kiss him, and then they pretend to kill him with slashing his throat with a knife. Oh, and your thing was like, James, like, and I was just into the show, and you're like, James.
Yeah, I was saying, what the heck?
Yes. Okay. I think this was the part that you were like, did they really do this?
Yeah, I remember the part. I think so.
Then two of Mistress Diva's assistants pretend to throw up on stage. You remember that? And they were throwing up on
That's when I almost got sick.
That's when you almost got sick.
Like, gotta get out of here, but I'm in the show. I mean, I'm watching the show, but...
And then she made some jokes saying that it's like the all-night shrimp night at Sizzlers. I thought
that one, like, okay, shrimp, and they are pretending to try to throw up. Like, what a scene.
Yes. Then she makes another joke saying, you don't get that quality entertainment at the Magic Kingdom.
Reference to Disneyland. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, for shame. For shame. Oh, wow. Okay, so you're really going to do that for...
Really say that about the Disneyland? Magic Kingdom? Really?
Yes.
I turned to James like, did she just say that?
Yes, she did. So then, of course, the Mariner makes his entrance. And they do the normal stuff during the day where the Mariner makes his entrance. They are shooting him. Helen runs up the ladder. And the big guy tries to take the Mariner's head off. And then the jet skier chases him. And they do all the normal stuff. And then, of course, Helen goes across the street with the bucket. But instead of, like, the guy chasing her, like, during the Waterworld show, they had Bambi chasing her. If you remember that.
You mean the bad girl?
Not the main bad girl, but the assistant.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. And then they do the whole...
fighting scene over there.
The fighting thing where she gets hit with the bucket, she falls on the net. At the time, before they got rid of that net scene.
Yeah.
And then Helen goes across to the other side.
Right.
And then they do the normal fight with the big guy and the Mariner. Mm-hmm. But they make a change.
I think I remember this.
Basically, so the only change is before he throws him into the water, he pretends to cut his manhood off with the machete. I was like, man, those poor guys.
I just went like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
I didn't say it out loud in the crowd, but it's like I was thinking it.
It was like, wow, that poor guy.
Yeah.
That poor guy. So, yeah. And then this one, I think, I was shocked that they actually did this. And I saw it like 10 times and it still shocks me. Even rewatching the video. I was like, how did they get away with this scene? Where they had a sexy kiss and hot scene with the Mariner and Helen kissing and doing that thing. Yeah.
I remember that one.
I was like...
I started watching like, what?
Yeah.
The heck?
Yeah, and that was exactly my words, Mom. That was exactly my words. But yeah. So then they do the normal thing where the Mariner runs one way and Helen runs the other way.
Like during the day.
And then, of course, the Mariner goes back to his jet ski, and then the only difference they did for that one was the Mariner, before he gets back on the jet ski, he kisses Barbie on the lips and then pretends to give her a slap.
The bad girl, yeah.
The assistant, yeah.
Yeah.
Then they do the normal thing where Mariner jumps over as the bomb goes off, or the thing. And then Helen does her normal thing where kicking the two guys in the nuts. Or their private area.
Right.
And then they added something new where they had a third guy attacking her. And basically she pretends to beat him up and then pretends to cut his head off with a machete.
This almost toward the end, right, James?
It's almost towards the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, they do the normal thing where she gets knocked out. And then they do the rocket launcher thing. And I thought was one of the funniest things that Mistress Diva says to the Mariner, says, Mariner, I noticed that you don't have a lot of lines. Do you have a crappy agent?
I remember that.
And then she says, don't worry, I'm going to make sure you have a great death scene. And then one of the other funny things that I liked, before they shoot off the third missile and then the plane comes into the arena, she basically says, who do I have to bang to get something to shoot around here? Another sexual reference.
Yeah. I remember.
I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, wow. Okay.
I'm thinking, okay, that's another sexy reference.
Yes. Yes. And then there's a big fight between Helen and Barbie, and of course, Helen blows up Barbie or pretends to blow her up. And then of course, Helen's trying to find the script, and basically Mr. Steva gets to the strip, says the only coffee burned to a crisp, and Mr. Steva thinks that she won, and she's gonna start calling Helen Thumper as her new play thing.
Right.
And then she says, "Is any of my idiots still alive?" And of course, one's still alive, and they go up on the big ladder in the center of the stage. And then, of course, they do the famous scene with the Mariner coming up, saving Helen.
Yeah.
And then instead of Helen going to go get the boat, before that, the guy who took Helen up gets stabbed and pretends to go across like the way Helen would usually go.
Right.
And then Helen goes down the pole, and then the Mariner attacks another person. And instead of the Mariner going over the edge, it's the other person that goes over the edge. And then he pretends to hang the person by the neck. Do you remember that scene? And then
yes,
they
I
fall
remember.
off.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they play the music during the day and Helen says, "Happy ending." Yeah. No, wrong. And then Mr. Steva says, "Wrong music, wrong ending," and she pretends to hit Helen with the flare gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then she pretends to shoot the Mariner, and the Mariner is the one that's doing the fire dive.
Right, I remember.
And then, of course, the famous last words from Mr. Steva to end the show. And I thought this was great, the way that they ended it. Just give me a moment to get there, guys. Okay. So, of course, at the end, Miss Steva says, "And the winner is me. It's time to party, Thumper. I would all invite you to stay, but I have lives to ruin. I know life's a bitch, Helen, but so am I. You can all go to hell." And that's how the show ends.
Definitely remember that.
And I remember as soon as the show ended, like me and Brian, because Brian was with us,
mm-hmm.
one of my old friends that unfortunately lives in Florida now. But when me and him were standing up, and you just had to take a moment to say, "What the heck did I just watch?"
Yeah.
So your reactions to Slaughter World 3?
I really liked it. A lot of sexual references, but that's the show. Really enjoyed it. Good stunts. And I wish I saw it more times.
Yeah. But you can always watch it on YouTube. I mean, you can always watch it on it because I have the video saved on my phone, so I can always send it to you and you can watch it more times.
Right. But it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, yeah,
What's your impression, James?
I really did enjoy it. I was surprised, but I understood. So just like how Chucky got canceled,
right?
This was the final year for Chucky. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything with Slaughter World again until many years later. Until actually this year in 2023,
mm-hmm.
which we did talk about.
Right.
They didn't do a stunt show from 2008 until all the way until 2023. So that was like 15, 16 years. And then they finally did a Purge stunt show in the Waterworld queue.
Right, this year.
So.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but
because I know why. Because the maze had to go in there.
There was mazes and other things too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so All right, guys. So,
I can tell you it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
I really
But
did.
a lot of sexual references, I was like saying, what the heck?
Yes. And, of course, for all the shows, there are video forms of it. So I do have the link for the Slaughter World. It is not on YouTube. So let me just reference this. You can find Slaughter World 1 and you can find Slaughter World 2 on YouTube. But unfortunately, you cannot find Slaughter World 3. Luckily, there is another website that I found Slaughter World 3 on. So I will put the link to that website down below so you guys can check out both Chucky's Inside Emporium, Slaughter World 3, and you can also watch the Bill and Ted show, which is going to be the final one that we're going to talk about in this video. But this is going to be where I'm going to stop this first part of the podcast, and it's going to be 2 parts edited, so we'll be right back to talk about the Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure show from 2008. So we'll be right back with the end of this podcast. Alright guys, so we're back to talk about the final show for Halloween Horror Nights 2008 Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood. And this one is sorry about that cough, guys. Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. So basically, just like for example, like this podcast is 2 parts put together. So that's why I had to stop the first part, and then now this is the second part to finish the podcast and talk about the last show. So, Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. Mom, your feelings on that first.
When we were watching it on YouTube,
it brought back memories, didn't it?
It brought back memories, and I really enjoyed this show.
Right. So, this one I think has the most notes.
It does.
So, if you want to talk about a particular scene, we have time because I want people to know how it was back in the day. So, Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. This was located in the Fear Factor Live stage, but it was inside the formal Castle Theater that's no longer there because that's where they're building the Fast and the Furious roller coaster. So, your first thoughts about having that in that location?
It was a big theater. They could fit a lot of people in there, and I really liked it in there, James. Your thoughts on that?
I really did enjoy that myself. I was really surprised at how big that theater was.
It's huge.
So this is the description. The boys of San Dimas return to the entertainment capital of LA for the most excellent time-traveling phone booth of a comedy spoof for this year's pop culture hits and celebrity screws up. So the official title for this show was called Bill and Ted Meets Hellboy. What did you think about the title first?
It was good. They always have a theme. The years I went after to Halloween Horror Nights, they usually had a theme, like they meet somebody, like,
different
people. And that's what I liked about the show, too.
They had reference to different movies and TV shows.
Right.
But the official title for this show was called Bill and Ted Meets Hellboy. And you're going to understand because the whole plot line involves Hellboy and, of course, the prince from Hellboy 2.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to get to that eventually. Pretty soon. So, before the show officially began, as people were taking their seats, they had these actors and actors dressed up as in business suits and skirts. I didn't know what it was for at the beginning until I saw the show for the first time. Then I noticed when the candidates came out for presidential, I put two to two together that realizing that those people were dressed up as Secret Services or pretending to be Secret Service.
Right.
So what was your reaction when you saw that first?
Like, what's going on? It's like, then I noticed the Secret Service, like, that's the uniforms they wear.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have glasses on. All the Secret Service people have glasses on.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, as the show began, they basically made fun of president candidates between Senator John McCain with Sarah Palin and then Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama. What did you think about that?
Like, are they going to have a debate before the show? That's what I was thinking.
I was like, okay, because it was down between those two that was going to be or future presidents.
So I got the reference after that, James. Like, okay, these are our two candidates
for a presidency.
Yeah.
Yes. So, so they introduced themselves, and then, of course, they basically, they said they're gonna get questions from the audience members.
Yeah.
But what I liked about the show too is that certain spots if you sat next to an actor, you could tell they had a headset and it was part of the show.
Right.
But I really did enjoy that.
Yes.
So as they started, or before they took to questions, I should say, they made fun of each other. So after they came out with the presidency and introduced themselves, John McClane took a shot at Barack Obama by saying, like my inexperienced opponent, I've been ready to lead from day one. Then Barack Obama made fun of John McCain by saying, I've been ready to lead since day one. Unlike my opponent, I will not die from old age on day two. I was like, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about that?
Are they going to have a debate here right now? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but I'm saying, what about the insults for each other?
Good ones.
Good ones.
Good ones.
Yes.
Good ones.
Then they took questions from the audience. So the first question was for Barack Obama, and it came from an actress pretending to play the character Juno. If you don't know, Juno was a movie that starred Seth Rogen, and I forgot the girl who basically played her, but she was basically a teenager who got pregnant.
Right.
And it was supposed to be like a comedy. I remember seeing the trailer for it, but I never watched it, so I didn't really get the reference for that character.
I don't even know what that movie's all about. So, yeah.
I honestly don't know either. So, basically the question that she asked was, since she is pregnant, would she be okay to watch the show?
Yeah.
And of course, as Barack
Obama
was gonna answer, Sarah Palin took over and said, "I'll answer it," saying, as a mother of an inbred whore, the show is perfectly safe for a pregnant woman. I was like, wow. They really went there. And then...
They did.
And then she pretends to have her baby, and she's like, thanks for the concern and Gramps and stuff. And then John McClane says, get a job. So apparently it's a reference to the movie by she didn't get a job. I don't know, but you know.
Because we don't know anything about that movie, so we don't know.
I don't know anything about that movie. So yeah. So that was the first question. Then the next question went to John McClane. It was from an actor playing an oil man. I do not know the reference for the movie or TV show, so it basically got lost in my head.
Right.
His name was Daniel Day-Lewis, I think was his name.
Lewis?
Yeah, and he said, Mr. McClane, my question to you is, I have a milkshake and you have a milkshake, and my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and it's like, damn right, it's better than yours. Damn right, it's better than yours. I drink your milkshake. I was like, wow, they really went there. And then John McClane said, and the question you're asking, my friend, is you can have food and drinks in the theater? Yes, you can. And he says, well, you got my vote.
Yeah.
Starting off strong, Bill and Ted. Starting off strong.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So then, basically, Hillary Clinton makes her appearance. Sorry, guys, I lost the notes where I was. There we go. So then the next question comes from Helen T. And she says, you beat a woman. And Obama said, well, in the presidential elections. Hillary says, eat me. And then John McClane says, you can't say that language. And then Barack Obama says, yes, she can. As a character in tonight's Bill and Ted show, she can say the words like bastard. And then, of course, Hillary says bastard again.
Mm-hmm.
And bitch. And then he also said that this show contains nearly naked people.
That was a true statement. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really not suitable for young children.
No. No. And then Hillary says, well, I can show you my delicates. And then I just saw two of the agents like just block her, like two of the actors that were like playing the Secret Service. It was like funny.
Oh man.
Oh man. That was that was hilarious.
It was.
And then of course, John McClane also says, my opponent forgot to mention that this show contains sudden loud noises that might startle people, and then when the pirate attack thing goes off, and she pretends like it's sniper fire, and she's like, out of my way, you stupid bastards.
Was that Hillary?
That was Hillary.
Yeah.
And then of course, like they do for every Bill and Ted show, they have an opening dance number, and of course, it's a rap battle between Obama and McClane. I thought it was very funny, and then of course to get the audience pumped up, they played "We Will Rock You" by Queen. So
that's a good song to play at the opening.
Yes. So
thing.
So from just that section alone, what was your impression when you saw it live? I know you like rewatched the video with me,
right?
But I'm saying remembering that, like going back to that night, because I remember I've seen that show like 10 times.
Right, I only saw it once that night.
Yeah.
Started out really, really good.
Yeah.
I was, so far so good. I really enjoyed it.
I was heavenly surprised.
Right.
At how good
it was.
It was.
Yeah. It was really good.
It was really good. So then of course the show officially starts. I would say that was like the pre-show, but they technically considered it part
of the show. But they got the audience pumped up. What's going to happen?
So I would say that was kind of the pre-show. That was in my mind, but they considered it part of the show.
I say it was a pre-show.
So you agree with me?
Yeah, to get the audience pumped up, what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I would call it.
So then I think the start of the official show started, and you basically see Hellboy logging into the agency computer to get his next assignment, and his username is Hellboy, and his password is Horny Devil. You have nothing to say on that.
No, I have nothing to say on that one.
So then he gets a breakdown of this year's part show where the Bill and Ted were collecting these villains, and of course they required one item that was the crown of Bethmora. This is a reference to Hellboy 2, which I've seen the first one. I have never seen the second one, so
I've never seen any of those movies.
Right, and then also the show takes place in Warehouse Area 69. That's the setting for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So after Hellboy gets all his things, then of course Bill and Ted make their
appearance.
Yes, and it's the same way that they do it for every show. It's
the phone booth. And
they do their thing.
Yeah.
And then they basically tell the audience that they've been collecting for this year's show all the stuff from movies and TV shows from 2008 up to that point.
Right.
And of course they said they can't do it without their help of without the help of Indiana Jones, aka Harrison Ford. And of course Harrison Ford
shows up
rappelling down. And this was like, I think, one of my favorite bits of the show. I had multiple, but one of my favorites was they made a reference to Star Wars and Indiana Jones, where first Harrison Ford thinks Bill is a Nazi.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And then he thinks Ted is a stormtrooper. And then they do a reference to Chewie, and he says to Ted, or he says to Ted, thinking that he's Chewie, that Chewie, is that you? My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. And then, of course, they give the backstory to the crown of Bethmora. And then, of course, the main bad guy, which for this podcast, I'm just going to call him the Prince, because I do not know how to say his freaking name. So he's going to be referenced as the Prince.
Yes.
The Prince comes and is coming to take the crown back. And he says, well, I'm going to wipe out take out the human race. And he said, and they said, well, what's going to be the world without world of people? And they said, well, let's ask Will Smith. And of course, they do a reference to the 2008 movie I Am Legend, which I saw. I recommend watching that movie because it creeped me the fuck out when I saw it.
Right.
So I understood the reference. And then they do that, and then they make a joke where Harrison Ford does 65% of his own stunts. And then of course he fails, and the prince punches him.
So he's getting older. Well, in reference to the Bill and Ted, he was getting older, and he really couldn't do the stunts anymore.
Yeah, that was basically what the joke was.
Right.
And of course, then they make the appearance of Hellboy. And Hellboy, basically, there's a big fight between the Hellboy and the prince.
Right.
And then I thought this was another funny reference. Hellboy says, "Give up, Prince. We know you didn't bring any backup." But he says, "No, I didn't, but Grandpa did." And they're doing another reference to Harrison Ford being so old. And Bill and Ted asked, "Please don't tell me you packed up the villains." And he says, "Well, you said to collect everything." I was like,
were they talking about Harrison Ford?
No.
Oh.
The joke was when, Bill and Ted have been collecting for the show.
Right.
And Harrison Ford was helping them.
Right.
And so the joke was when the prince said, "I don't have any backup, but Grandpa did." And Bill and Ted say, "Please tell me you didn't pack up the villains." And then Harrison Ford says, "Well, you said to pack up everything."
Got it now.
Uh-huh. That was like the reference.
Right.
So of course, someone dressed up as the alien from Alien vs. Predator comes out, and they make a joke that he has Indiana Jones' crystal skull, and he turns it into a bomb.
A bomb, yeah. Yep.
And then Harrison Ford says, "Hey, he's got my crystal," or the person that's playing Harrison Ford says,
"He got my crystal.
He got my crystal skull. And that son of a bitch turned it into a bomb. Why did I not think of that?" I was like, yes. Yes, they are referencing the worst movie and they're making it a joke. I absolutely love it. Oh, man.
That was a good joke.
And then, of course, they make fun of Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of
Baker Street or something.
Street,
yeah.
And then I knew that they were going to do it, but I was like, I'm hoping they don't reference this. They referenced the Sex and the City movie.
With all the girls. Yeah.
And Harrison Ford says, "Skanks. Why did it have to be skanks?"
I guess they meant like, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wow. Okay. They're like movie heavy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay. So then they do like reference that. But also what was funny is Ted says, the Gurren girls are not villains.
Right.
So they thought like the girls from Sex and the City were the Golden Girls. And you laughed so hard when that.
Oh, I laughed so hard on that reference.
I was like, yes.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, yes, they did something great.
They did.
So then, of course, 2008, I feel really bad, but I'm kind of glad they added this character in for a remembrance of Heath Ledger's Joker from the Dark Knight.
Right, yeah.
They had someone
dressed up as the Joker.
Right. And I love the line that he does. He says, he comes downstairs and he says, the first line he says, well, I thought my jokes were bad. I was like, yes. And then basically, the Joker says he's doing a pop culture experiment with the magic of Dieselfill mixed with Mentos and Coca-Cola. He's ready to blow teen superstar Miley Cyrus sky high. And of course, they did a reference to the Hannah Montana movie from 2008.
Yeah.
Yes.
I never saw that movie, but
I did. Yes.
You know.
So then, of course, he asked the audience, what should he do? Spare her life or blow her to smithereens? And of course, he's always going to blow it up because it's part of the show.
Right.
But, you know, and he says, well, I'm a man of my word. And he counts down to 3 and then he hits a button. They make a sound effect like the bombs are going to go off. And then there's an explosion. But she doesn't die. She turns into Two-Face. And I think one of the other greatest lines that he said was, son of a bitch.
Like he didn't do it right.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then there's a scene where everyone's running around and Hellboy and the Prince take the booth and the Swede Todd gets knocked out cold.
Right.
Then the girls from Sex and the City say, he's out cold, what should we do? Another one says, let's have sex with him. And another one says, why? Well, that's what we do, or buy shoes.
Man, that was a bad line. That was a bad line in the show.
So then, of course, the demon barber says, who does your hair, love? And he's looking down at a woman's private parts.
Oh.
And then another one lifts us up and he says that is the worst pie of London. So if you watch the video and you get to that scene, you'll know what I'm talking about when I put the link down below.
Yeah.
So then, of course, they make fun of Speed Racer from 2008.
Right.
That movie that bombed in the box office.
Oh, that was the worst movie ever.
It was that, and then the other reference that they do later, which is the Love Guru.
Right.
Those two bombed so badly.
At the box office, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then, of course, they come out on these little tricycles.
Right.
And pretty much, basically do it like a dance party, and they make a joke saying that Speed is on speed and Mr. X is on X.
X, yeah.
And then, of course, at the end of the dance number, basically, Mr. Ryder X, basically licks Ted and says, "You taste like happy." I was like, what the fuck are they doing?
Oh my gosh, that was a bad line.
I was like,
oh, what is that line? Oh my gosh.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
But they said, at least your movie wasn't as bad as The Love Guru. I was like, wow, the shame. And then, of course, they have the person that's playing the Love Guru come out, and basically, he's being pushed. He's floating on his magic carpet when it's a person in a green suit pushing him around, and Ted and the Love Guru go back and forth saying, "I can see him," and the Love Guru says, "No, you can't." And then when the Love Guru gets up from the magic carpet, there's the sound of the wheel is squeaking.
Right.
And I think my favorite line from this section is the Love Guru says, "Ever heard of WD-40, you green son of a bitch?"
Ooh.
And the guy in the suit gives him the middle finger.
I remember that.
I was like,
that was a good line. That was a good line.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite one was, he asked the audience why no one has seen my movie. Then he says, "Well, why would I pay $12 for a movie ticket with a large popcorn to see dumbass Michael Myers play the Love Guru when he should have made Austin Powers 4? And he says, "I'm the hate guru now. I hate you son of bitches," and he gives the audience a middle finger. I was like, wow.
Yep.
Wow. And then of course, Speed Racer and Ryder X leave. So of course they leave after that scene.
Right.
And then of course, basically the booth comes back and Hellboy and the Prince come back out.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happens. I'm going back. Yeah.
They come back in the booth, I remember.
I'm looking, Mom.
Back down.
I'm looking. Oh, no. That's later. We jumped ahead.
Right.
That did not what happened. That's a later scene that we jumped in.
Okay. Got it.
So then they make fun of Kung Fu Panda.
That's right. The panda.
Yeah, so they make fun of Kung Fu Panda. They have someone in a panda suit. Then, of course, they make fun of Alvin and the Chipmunks.
I remember.
I was like, why? Why?
Why do they make fun of the Chipmunks? They didn't do anything wrong.
Well, of course, it came out in 2008, which was one of the worst Alvin and Chipmunks movies ever.
Didn't see it.
Yeah, I did not see it either. Then they make fun of Rambo, the movie, and you see a person dressed up as Rambo go after the panda by pretending to kill him. Then he shoots the chipmunks. And then he says, "Anyone gonna eat this?" I love Panda Express. I love how they did a reference to Panda Express.
That was good.
And then he goes back into his box, and Bill and Ted say, "Move away from the crate," after putting another small box on it.
Right. Then
they do a reference to Angelina Jolie from the movie Wanted by saying Bill is the assassin. Is an assassin. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Remember that, yeah.
And then they put a target on stage, and Miley Cyrus comes back on stage, and Angelina says, "Curve the bullet around Miley Cyrus instead," but he shoots her instead. And of course, they do another dance number as the scene is happening. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Remember.
Then the Predator comes, or the alien comes back on stage, and I love this reference. They say, well, can you help us with that? No, I have 80 mouths to feed. That's what, it was a joke saying because she has so many kids that are adopted.
Yeah.
So then the alien attacks Bill and Ted, then knocks him out when he hears the agents from X-Files.
Moeller and Scully.
Moley and Scully, yes. Then the alien attacks Mulder. And then there's a funny dialogue when Scully is saying things and Mulder is getting attacked by the alien in the background.
Right.
It's a very funny scene. I didn't want to spoil it for this podcast, so you have to go watch the link to the video to see that funny scene.
It was really funny. We're not going to spoil it for you.
It was really funny. Then, now the booth comes back.
Yes.
That's what it was. Then
with the alien and...
No, with Hellboy and the Prince.
Yes.
Okay. Then there's another battle with Hellboy. Then Ted takes over, and then the Prince throws the spear at Bill. And I love what what Ted says in the slow motion, because the Prince throws the spear and then the guy in the green suit is like just walking towards Bill.
Mm-hmm.
And Ted like says, okay, I think he's just fine. Mm-hmm. Like that slow motion.
Yeah.
And then of course you think Bill is dead, but he's not. It was just the prop spear.
Yep.
Which I thought was amazing.
A good one, yeah.
Yeah. So then, of course, they call the booth back. And then the Prince says, this is not Beth Mora. And didn't I kill you already? He like points to Bill. So then they say, give us the crown and you won't get hurt. And the Prince says, you can't hurt me, stupid. We can't, but he can. And then they had a guy dressed up as the original Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
I love that reference.
Oh, that was a good reference. Yeah. That was really good.
We're getting towards the end of the show, guys.
Almost there.
Almost. Then Hellboy comes back and says, remember me? And this time I brought back up the Incredible Hulk. He brings some random guy dressed as Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
I was like, they're going to do a reference to the Hollywood Boulevard. They're going to do a reference to the Hollywood Boulevard. I was like, I know it's coming. And the next line that Hellboy says, yeah, I picked him up at Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was like,
oh my god. And I was
like, Bill and Ted said, that explains it. And then the guy says to the Prince, what are you going to do when Hulkamania wants Rilo you? And I love what the Prince says next. He says, who the hell is this redneck?
Oh.
And that's when the audience was like laughing. It was so funny.
Oh yeah, I was laughing too.
So then there's a little fight between the Prince and Hulk Hogan. And of course, Hogan gets punched by the Prince.
Right.
And then the Iron Man says, Hulk, it's my turn. Then Hogan says, he's all yours, brother. And Hellboy says, let's blow this joint so we can get the heck out of here. And then, of course, there's an explosion.
Right. I remember the explosion.
This is like the very last conversation for the end of the show, guys.
Right.
Then they blow up the prince. They think they blow up the prince, and Bill and Ted say, excellent. We could have done it without the help of our friends in sync.
The boy band. Reference to the boy band in sync. Yeah.
You were like, wow, they really did do that.
They did. Like, really?
And then Hellboy says the name is Hellboy, and the prince comes back from the booth, and he says, "Ha! Missed me, bitch!" Then Bill says, "Doobie, you're totally alive." And then Ted says, "We didn't mean to blow you up, Narnia. How can we make it up to you?" And I love this reference. Can you get me tickets to Wicked?
The bad guy said that.
Yeah, remember? So back in 2008, if anyone doesn't know the reference, Wicked was the hottest tickets both in New York and here in LA. And you could not get tickets anywhere. So that was the reference where he says, "Can you get me tickets to Wicked?"
Yeah.
I love that part. And Ted says, "No, but we can get you a song by Grammy Award winner Neo." Then the prince says, "Even better." Then Bill and Ted say, "Excellent." And the prince says, "Victory is mine."
Yep.
And then Hulk says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Neo, brother."
Yep.
And then, of course, like they do for every single show,
they have a dance party.
No, they have a closing dance number. So here are the list of songs that they did in order. So the first one was Neo, and the song was called Closer. Then the next one they did was New Kids on the Block, Step by Step. Next one was Janet Jackson, and the song was Feedback. The next one was Pink, So What. Next one was Flow Rider, Low. Mm-hmm. Then the next one was Katy Perry, the song I Kissed a Girl. Then the next one was the Pussycat Doll, When I Grow Up. And then this was, I think, one of the best endings for Bill and Ted. The final song that they danced to was, go ahead.
Thriller from Michael Jackson.
Yes. That's how they ended the show, was with Thriller from Michael Jackson.
I really like that. Because that was a popular song in the 2008.
Uh-huh.
Number one hit.
Yes. Well, it came out like way before, but people started to like re-enjoy that song.
From that year.
From that year. And then, of course, to end the show, like they do for every show, Bill and Ted say, "Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes." So, and then, of course, as the audience is leaving, they play one last song. It's Sums 41's Underclass Hero. Mm-hmm. And that was the Bill and Ted show for 2008. Your opinion, Mom?
Oh, I love that show. Everything was great from that show. I loved the fighting. I loved the songs, the actors. They were all on their game.
Right. I really did enjoy it. I was surprised at how good it was.
It was like...
Because remember, this was the first time that I got to see Bill and Ted.
Right.
I got to see the show 10 times.
But I saw it the one time when I went closing night. But I really, really enjoyed this show.
Yeah. It was a fantastic show.
It was.
All right, guys. So this is going to wrap up my first series of history video / podcast. So as I said, we are going to be going in order. So the next one I'm going to be doing is
2009.
2009. Yep, your first official year going more times than the one that you went in 2008.
That is correct.
And there is a story behind one of the mazes that you will tell when we get to that maze.
Oh.
Yes.
That one, yeah.
Yes. So people are going to have to wait to hear that story.
It's a story to be told.
So we're going to get to that when we get to that maze.
Yes.
So, all right, guys. So this is going to wrap up episode 9. As I said, sometime this week, episode 10 will be coming out, where it's going to be our final night of Halloween Horror Nights review, as well as our general overall review, and it's going to be our list from our favorite maze to our least favorite maze, and all that fun stuff.
From this year.
From 2023. So, Mom, anything you want to say before I wrap up this podcast / video?
I really liked 2008 Halloween Horror Nights. Even though I went one time, it was very, very good.
Right. All right, guys. So this is Jimmypancakes20, aka James, signing off, and we'll see you sometime this week for episode 10, which is going to be the longest podcast I ever do, which is going to be several parts edited together. Our closing night of Halloween Horror Nights review, as well as our overall review of the event this year. So we'll see you sometime this week for episode 10, and we'll catch you guys later.